Today, we are going to continue going through the top positions in the NFL draft. And today, we are going to be focusing on the linebacker position. Today, we're going to be looking at the top 15 linebackers in this class. And this is an awesome linebacker class. You got a little bit of everything here, and there's a lot of depth. Now, there is only 15 guys that made the cut. There's going to be some guys that naturally miss out. So I do want to talk about some honorable mentions. Brian McCoy from Akron just missed the cut. Really like him. He reminds me a lot of Bobby Wagner, the current Bobby Wagner, who's maybe not as elite in coverage. He's an incredible block shedder. He's a really good run defender. He moves pretty well for his size as well. I really like what he does, as well as Ben Bywater. The real question with him, can he stay healthy? He's coming off a pretty serious injury for BYU. He's going to be a guy that I have my eyes on. And then the other guy I wanted to show a little bit of love to here is Marlowe Wax Jr. from Syracuse. He is fantastic. He moves well. He's a hard hitter, explosive athlete in the open field. All three of those guys did just miss the cut. But we are going to be still talking about 15 guys who I think are going to be very solid prospects entering this draft class. So if you guys do enjoy NFL draft content like this, leave a like and subscribe if you are new. We are ramping up the content. We've been doing only these videos for the last few weeks. Next week, that's going to change. We're going to be starting to do 2 uploads a week, and then we're getting very, very close to the prospect spotlights returning. I believe I have the first one scheduled for August 2nd. So if you guys do want to get involved, hit that notification bell so you never miss out on a video. But let's go ahead and get things kicked off here with my number 15 linebacker, and that is going to be USC linebacker Easton Mascarenas. He is coming over from Oregon State. Initially, it was a guy I didn't have on my board. Ended up adding him late and was a great addition to the board. I was really impressed with what he did. He's got really good size, and he's a pretty solid athlete. He has fluid hips, is a good mover. I thought he had good change of direction and triggered well in run defense in particular. But really what I was most impressed with was his coverage skills. He had the physicality to match up really well in one-on-one situations. He also was a good quarterback spy. He read the quarterback's eyes well. I think he's going to be a really good coverage player at the next level. When you start asking some questions about Mascarenas, it's going to be his tackling. He overextended at times in the run game, took some poor angles, had some missed tackles that I am a little bit concerned about with his games, and his block shedding was a little bit up and down. I think I gave him and Brian McCoy the same grade. It really just went to competition level. He played well for Oregon State. He's going to USC, a team that's got a new defensive coordinator. Hopefully he can have a big year, but I was really impressed by what I saw from his tape, particularly in coverage, and he is my number 15 linebacker in this class. At number 14, we've got Kareem Reed, a guy that he's had some injuries in his collegiate career, but I think he is a really solid player. He's around 6'1", 226, if I recall correctly, so he's got really good size, fantastic length at the position. He's a really solid mover in space. He's got speed, quickness, change of direction ability that you love to see from linebackers. But I really loved his tackling. I think he was one of the better tacklers in this draft class. He was reliable. He made some really nice plays. Hard hitter, wrapped up really well. You love to see that. It really came down to his coverage abilities. He was average in coverage. I didn't think he was bad, but I didn't think he did anything in coverage that really made me excited. On top of that, I thought his run defense was pretty average, as well as his block shedding. I think he could improve his play strength and getting off blocks a little bit better, but he was the better of the 2 Utah linebackers over Lander Barton. I prefer Reed. I think both of them are going to be good players, but I think Reed offers a little bit more, and I think his tackling is very good. Some of the best in the class, so I've got him at 14. At number 13, we've got Nick Jackson, one of 2 Iowa linebackers that ended up making the top 15 for me. We're going to talk about the negatives. This is a guy that was rated pretty highly in the new College Football 25 video game, which still haven't gotten around to playing, unfortunately. He's got some ups and downs in coverage for me. But really, it was just, he's a really good athlete. He's quick, as a fluid mover, got quick hips, speed, quickness, all that you like to see there. he felt out of control at times, particularly when coming downhill in the run game. He would, if he had a right angle, it felt like he didn't really have the the ability to make the play. He felt out of control. And at other times, I just felt like he wasn't strong enough to get off blocks, which is strange because I didn't think his play strength was an issue because he was a very strong tackler. He made some really nice plays. He had a better tackle rate than Jay Higgins in terms of missed tackle percentage. He wraps up really well in the open field. He's got a lot to really like there. I think he's got good size as well. The question is going to be his coverage and can he shed blocks and be a consistent enough run defender? We haven't really seen that from Nick Jackson up to this point. I still think I have a third or fourth round grade on him. I think he's going to be a good player, definitely a draftable player, as are all these guys. I think the lowest grade here is Easton Mascarenas. He's a fourth, fifth round player. Nick Jackson, I think I take early in day 3, but I still think he's got a lot to offer to the table. I got him at number 13. At number 12, it's Tyreen Powell from Rutgers. If we're going straight off talent, Tyreen Powell's probably a top 5 linebacker in this draft class. He's incredible. The size is there. The length is the most impressive part. His arms are long. He's got everything you like to see there. He is a strong and physical tackler who lays the wood, hits hard. You love to see that from the linebacker position. With an excellent run defender. He shed blocks really well, was able to close gaps that opened up in run defense, and I thought he showed some really good coverage upside. It's the injury history. This guy has not been able to stay healthy for Rutgers, and at the time of recording this, he is recovering from an Achilles injury that he suffered back in March. So his status for week 1, while they expect him to play, we really don't know. It's a red flag. We saw it with Peyton Wilson, who was my number 1 linebacker last year. You're going to fall down boards as a result of it. He's got all the talent in the world with all the tools there. Really, my questions are his athleticism. Didn't feel like he was the fastest, the quickest player in the world. His change of direction was also something that I had some questions about. But I think Tyreen Powell can be a good player at the next level. It's just, can he stay healthy? Because we have yet to see him do that consistently. And if he can, I think he could be a solid second or third round pick at the next level, but health is going to really hold him back, I think. At number 11, we've got Smail Mondon out of Georgia. I wasn't a big fan of him last year. Kind of went back to some of my evaluations. I think they still stand. While I think he's a good player, I don't think he's a great player. You look at the athleticism. This guy is up there with Harold Perkins as the best athlete in this draft class. He is fantastic in coverage. Reminds me a lot of Isaiah Simmons. This is a guy I could see moving to safety at the next level because he moves incredibly well for the position. He's got fluid hips, incredible speed, closing speed, can play one-on-one in coverage in man-to-man, which you'll love to see as well. So I like that from him. But I thought he was a pretty solid run defender, especially on outside zone runs. He did a really good job of getting to the outside, getting to the spot, and making the tackle, which I really like to see. But he's pretty undersized. I think he's got to add on more weight at the position. He had some missed tackles, took some pretty bad angles at times. And then I think he really lacks power in his game. He would come downhill as a pass rusher. He'd have a good angle, and then he would get met with a powerful block, and he just could not get off of it. It was like he was stonewalled, stunned a little bit, and then he'd go back into it, but it was too late. He didn't have the momentum anymore. Something he needs to develop as a pass rusher is converting that speed to power, being able to beat power consistently, because I didn't really see that a lot for him last season. I got him at number 11. I think his athleticism and his run defense really are going to help him, and he is great in coverage. He's a good player. Another guy I think I'd take in the third round, but I do have some questions about his size, tackling, and power. Entering the top 10 here, one of my favorite players here, and that is going to be Miami linebacker Francisco Mauigoa. Excellent player. Played really well in like a shallow zone sort of role. Was a good run defender, but I thought he worked really well as a quarterback spy as well. Kind of snuffed out quarterback runs incredibly well, to be completely honest. I think he's got really good block shedding ability. Comes downhill as a run defender, which we just talked about is his best strength. and he sheds blocks well, closes gaps, gets to the inside shoulder, and is able to make a really good tackle. He's a good athlete too, and I think he shows some upside as a pass rusher. Wasn't used in that role a ton for Miami, but when he was, I thought it was effective for the Canes. I think he had some coverage concerns, didn't really play well in man-to-man, sometimes got his eyes lost in zone, and he wanted to come after the quarterback, completely abandoning his zone, leaving an open man, and a big play for Miami. You need to see that improve. I also thought while he's a good tackler, his technique was very inconsistent. Took some weird angles, tackled pretty soft at times as well. So there's a lot there to work on in terms of technique, but I absolutely love this guy. I think Miami is going to be one of the best teams in the country, as you guys are going to see in a couple of weeks. And I think he's going to have a really productive year for Miami. And I've got him at number 10. At number 9, we've got Jamon Dumas Johnson out of Kentucky, transferring from Georgia. And honestly, that's one of my big concerns with him. He transfers from Georgia. He should have the reins there in Georgia. We saw both Xavier Sori and Jamon Dumas Johnson transfer out. He never really was the guy at Georgia. He had some flashes, he had some moments, but I think his athleticism really held him back. He wasn't a very fluid mover, was pretty heavy on his feet, wasn't super quick. Didn't have great track down speed as well. So I think his athleticism really held him back in a lot of ways for Georgia. He goes to Kentucky, and I do prefer him over his teammate Mondon because I think he's a really strong hitter. He tackles with a ton of power. I think he's a really good coverage player as well. He read the quarterback's eyes extremely well in zone coverage, and I thought he was a good pass rusher with run defense upside as well. He has a lot of tools you're looking for. Can he piece everything together? And can his athleticism take a step up? Those are going to be the questions around Dumas Johnson. But I've got him at number 9 at the moment. And I could see him having a big year for Kentucky, being the number 1 guy and being the leader of that defense. At number 8, we've got Deontay Lawson out of Alabama. This is going to make some people upset. I think Lawson's a good linebacker. I don't think he's a great linebacker, though. I think he's got good size. I think he's around 6'2", 230. Looks bigger than that on the field, to be completely honest with you. I thought he was very fluid in coverage, which I think I think the most impressive part of his game was the way he matched up in one-on-one coverage, especially in that Michigan game in the college football playoff. He was really good at picking up Colston Loveland, the tight end, and made some really nice plays in coverage. He's a really good tackler as well. Doesn't miss a lot of tackles, takes good angles, is a hard hitter. And I think a lot of the concerns I have, he had some weird balance concerns. Just, I don't know if it was the field, but there were multiple times where his feet would just get swept up from under him and he'd end up on the ground, which was very strange. I didn't really see that from any other linebacker in this class. His block shedding was not great, especially as a pass rusher. Didn't really have the tools to shed blocks at an elite level. And then his speed. I don't think he's a great athlete, in all honesty. I think he's a good athlete. I don't think he's great. His speed was a little bit questionable to me. There are some concerns I have with him, but that being said, I still think he's an Alabama player. He's going to get a lot of love. I think he's a 3rd-round prospect at the moment, and maybe with a big year, he can jump up into that 2nd-round tier. But for right now, I've got him in a cluster of guys, and I've got him at number 8. And number 7 is probably my favorite linebacker in this draft class. If you guys have followed me for a while, it's Jason Henderson from Old Dominion. If anybody has a connect with me, I would love to have him on the show. He is a guy that I have been looking at. I looked at him last season. He is a tackling machine. He is an unbelievable tackler. I believe he broke the record last season for Old Dominion tackles in a season, which, good. I mean, you should. Old Dominion doesn't have any very extensive history there, but this guy is absolutely incredible. He's very fluid as an athlete, has good speed, can take good angles in the run game, especially going out wide. He's a hard hitter, lays the wood as a tackler. And I thought he was really solid in coverage as well. Read the quarterback's eyes well in zone, had the quickness and the twitchiness to match up with tight ends in the slot. I really liked what I saw from him in coverage. There's really not a lot of issues from him that I'm really worried about. I think his size could be an issue. I believe he's around 6'1", 227. It's really not bad. His length is the more questionable part for me. He doesn't have long arms. And I think it shows when trying to shed blockers. He really struggled to shed blockers at times. And that's a concern that I do have with him. I think he took some bad angles at times as well. Had some missed tackles that showed up. Well, that's not really an issue I'm too worried about. Was something I wanted to mention. I think he's got all the tools to be a great player. He's playing in the Sun Belt. Not great competition level, but that being said, he dominated last year. I expect another massive season. Had a chance to transfer out, and he decided to stay put with the Monarchs, and I'm excited for a big year from Jason Henderson. He's at number 7. At number 6, we've got Jay Higgins out of Iowa, another absolute monster. I compared him to Levante David on my Twitter not too long ago. He is fantastic. He is a tackling machine. Seems like every single play he was in on the tackle. He's a extremely hard hitter who plays with physicality, both as a tackler and in coverage. He's a smart zone player who reads defenses or reads offenses well, is able to keep his eyes on the quarterback, is able to blitz when necessary. I thought his blitzing was another bonus to his game, and I thought he was a fantastic block shedder. Again, I think athletically there are concerns I have with him. He was really heavy on his feet. I thought his change of direction was lacking. Didn't feel like the fastest guy. Again, Levante David has some of those same concerns, and Levante David has been a fantastic linebacker throughout his NFL career. I'm not worried about Jay Higgins. I think he's got all the tools to be one of the top linebackers in this class. Clearly, college football seems to think so as well. He was the top-rated linebacker in the game. I believe so. Him and Barrett Carter, I believe, were the top 2. Either way, Jay Higgins is a great player. I've got him at number 6. I think his athleticism holds him back a little bit, but I think he's going to be an awesome player at the NFL level. At number 5, we've got Jyshawn Barham out of Michigan, a transfer from Maryland. I love this guy. I didn't know how much I was gonna like him. He's really, really good. Really fluid mover. He's got great size. I thought he had really good hands as a pass rusher. He just pushed defenders' hands away and was able to get into the backfield. I thought he shot the gaps really well in run defense. And I like to see that from him. I think the movement abilities in particular were really impressive, except his change of direction. That was a little bit stiff. I'm not too worried about it. I think it's something he can definitely clean up. What I am worried about is his tackling technique. He took some really weird angles and was kind of a soft hitter at times, which was really strange. It didn't feel like he was tackling as hard as he could. This is a very physical player as a pass rusher. Didn't really show that in terms of tackling. I think that's an area he's definitely got to improve on. And then I put coverage grade here. Didn't really grade out well in coverage per PFF. In the couple games I watched of him, no coverage issues I saw. I thought he was pretty sound in coverage. I thought he moved well, read the quarterback's eyes well, and was able to trigger and blitz when needed. So I'm not too worried about it. I got him at number 5. I think he's going to be a good linebacker for the Wolverines this year, hopefully in that Junior Colson spot. But I got him at number 5. At number 4, we've got Jack Kaiser from Notre Dame. I loved both Notre Dame linebackers last year, if you guys recall. Maurice Leofau was one of my guys in this class, and then J.D. Bertrand was also one of my guys in this class. So really liked both of those guys, and I think Jack Kaiser is better than both of them. His change of direction was, I think, the best in this entire draft class. He just moved, and he could stop and go, turn his hips on a dime. It was very impressive the way he was able to change directions. I thought he was a very smart coverage player, which is a trend with these Notre Dame linebackers. They are very cerebral, very smart players. He's a very strong tackler as well, who's got some upside in run defense. I thought he shed blocks pretty well. Obviously, he was kind of a rotational piece for the Fighting Irish. So how's he going to look in a full-time starting role? I think he's going to be fine. His speed, I thought, was average. I didn't think he was the fastest guy in the world. And then his wingspan, I thought, was a little bit concerning. Didn't have the greatest length in the world. But if you've got a guy who can defend the run, he's a good tackler, he's a good coverage player, and he's got good change of direction, chances are you're going to be pretty high on my list. Jack Kaiser checks all the boxes, and that's why he's at number 4. At number 3, we've got Danny Stutzman from Oklahoma. I think he could have finished as my linebacker 1 last year. I think he probably would have. Another guy that's just a tackling machine. He was in every single tackle. He kind of has I don't really know how to describe it. He kind of has that like he just seems like he would be such a pain to play against because he just seems like a dick on the field. He is constantly in your face, right in the backfield, blowing plays up. And that's what I love about Danny Stutzman. He's got some really good coverage skills, who hits very hard, particularly the screen game. I thought his ability to sniff out screens, get into the backfield, and lay a powerful hit was very impressive. He also was a pretty good mover in coverage, which I liked. In man-to-man situations, I thought he lost a step at times. His long speed wasn't incredible, but I thought he had the quickness in that short to intermediate game. His block shedding and his tackling angles when coming downhill sometimes were a bit questionable. But again, a similar thing with Kaiser. He checks a lot of the boxes I look for in my linebackers. And I've got him at number 3. In the SEC, I think he's going to be a very fun player and going to be a fan favorite immediately. At number 2, we've got Barrett Carter from Clemson, another guy that probably would have been linebacker 1 last year. Him and Jeremiah Trotter. I liked Trotter a lot going into the season last year. Barrett Carter ended up taking that spot from him. He is an unbelievable run defender with the way that he can shed blocks, get into the backfield, and just blow up plays. He's also really good in coverage. He's a smart player who understands zone concepts really well, reads plays really well pre-snap, and he was the commander of this defense, which I really appreciated. He's a good blitzer as well. He came downhill. He showed some pass rush upside, which you thought that was Jeremiah Trotter. Barrett Carter has that as well. He's a fantastic athlete. I don't think his speed is incredible, but his quickness and his burst is very impressive. Had some missed tackles. Everyone does. It showed up a little bit more on the tape that I watched of him. And then I thought some missed coverage assignments. While he's good in coverage, there were times where he would come down too early as a blitzer, similarly to what we were talking about with Maui Goa, and he would leave a guy behind him. Didn't love that, but I think he's going to be fine at the next level. The athleticism, the run defense, coverage, pass rush. He checks all the boxes. He could be taken on the back end of the first round, but I have a second round grade on Barrett Carter at the moment. And I think that is a fair evaluation of him. And at number 1, shouldn't really come as a surprise, it's Harold Perkins Jr. I have no idea what to classify Harold Perkins Jr. as. Some people are going to say he's an edge rusher. He's too small to be an edge rusher, though. He's, I believe, 6'1", 220 pounds. He's undersized no matter where he is. If he's a linebacker, he's undersized. If he's an edge, he's very undersized. The reason he's an edge rusher, he is such a good pass rusher. I think it took a dip back from where we saw it in his true freshman season, because as a true freshman, he was out of this world as an edge rusher. He had 10 sacks as a true freshman. People thought he could be the number 1 pick. Definitely took a step back as a pass rusher, but I thought the rest of his game really took a step up. He is maybe the best athlete in this entire draft class, regardless of position. The way he moves, the quickness, the change of direction ability, the speed, the power. He is an extremely hard hitter. He checks all the physical boxes there. He's also got coverage upside. I thought he showed some upside in coverage last year for LSU. We talked about the pass rush. I thought his run defense was a little bit iffy, had some missed tackles where he would overextend and just didn't really have the strength to bring guys down. We talked about the size, and it really depends on what teams view him as. If he's an edge rusher, man, this guy could be a top 15 pick. If he's a linebacker, probably going to go towards the back end of the first round, but I still think he's a first-round player. Athletically, he is absolutely incredible. I think he's going to be a really fun player to monitor in this upcoming season. But that's going to do it for me in this video, guys. Leave a like, check out the Patreon, which I will have linked below. You guys can see all 44 linebackers that I studied in preparation for this video. You can read my evaluations, my scouting reports. Stay tuned. We have multiple really fun videos coming as we are ramping it up, getting ready for the college football season. So leave a like, subscribe if you are new. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.